Aloha, this is Poka Lainui, and I am your host for the next 2 hours. And hopefully the broadcast will go more smoothly than it has in the last 13 minutes. The Hawaiian Potpourri program, this program is produced by the Hawaiian National Broadcast Corporation, and of course the opinions that are expressed on this program are not necessarily those of the staff and management of this radio station or of the Hawaiian National Broadcast Corporation. Last night I gave a long explanation of the Nobel War Prize. It was called the Peace Prize previously, but based on the people that they tend to give it to, it's more war than peace. The problem was probably none of you heard it because I had music playing in the background, the same way this board has been operating this morning with a repetition of music once played, it just recycles and plays again. And I didn't realize it because I was not monitoring the sound as I was addressing the audience. And as a result, nothing was heard for about a half hour. So given that, it also gives me a new opportunity to talk again about the Nobel War Prize or Peace Prize, depending on your views on the matter. This article comes from the transcend.org, or is it transcend.com? It's a media service. It's a peace organization that is international. Julie Luckvisk of Global Research writes the following. The Nobel Committee did it again. The essence of its highest award, the Nobel Peace Prize, has been perverted. It's been turned into a propaganda tool, a form of institutionalized revisionism, for which war is upheld as a peaceful endeavor, creeping alongside power struggles called humanitarian interventions in a fantasy tale we call history. Neither Henry Kissinger nor Barack Obama and the European Union deserved a peace prize. How can the EU deserve a peace prize when it has been using its military might in the Middle East and Africa for over a decade? David Swanson notes, Europe has not, during the past year, which is a requirement, or even during the past several decades, done the most or the best work for fraternity between nations. Ask Libya, ask Syria, check with Afghanistan, see what Iraq thinks. Far from doing the best work to abolish or reduce standing armies, Europe has joined with the United States in developing an armed global force aggressively imposing its will on the world. There were good nominees and potential nominees available, even great ones. The West is so in love with itself that many will imagine this award a success. Surely Europe not going to war with itself is more important than Europe going to war with the rest of the world. In addition to waging war with murderous weapons, the EU also uses economic weaponry directed against civilians, such as the sanctions it imposes on Iran. Unlike the EU, Iran has not invaded or attacked any country, and the reasons justifying the economic sanctions are pure fantasy, says Korosh Ziabari. And he explains, this union has aggressively declared an all-out, bloodless war on Iran, affecting millions of innocent civilians in my country who can't understand what or for what crime they are being targeted and punished in such a belligerent and unfair manner. The European Union began to impose an inclusive oil embargo against Iran since July 1 as a result of direct pressure and lobbying by the United States, and in an effort aimed at paralyzing Iran's nuclear program. which they claim is not aimed at civilian purposes, and finally breaking the back of Iran's economy and pressuring it into making political concessions. Sensitive medicine and pharmaceutical products, which were previously imported from the foreign countries, cannot find their way to Iran's markets anymore, and thousands of patients badly in need of medicine for such diseases as thalassemia, hepatitis, diabetes, different types of cancer, heart disease, and psychiatric disorders are facing serious problems with finding their medicines. Waging wars does not take place simply by means of bombarding cities or dropping nuclear bombs on other nations. What the European Union has been doing with Iran is the unmistakable representation of an all-out war in which the ordinary citizens are the silent victims. And as if that was not enough, European peacemaking also includes fighting Iran's freedom of speech. As Danny Schechter reports, European satellite company Eutelsat says it's pulled the plug on several Iranian satellite channels following an order by the European Commission. The odd Nobel laureate is waging a financial war on its own members, as well as the cases of Greece and Spain illustrates. How can you award a peace prize of all things to an entity that systematically supports the economic and social destruction of Greece, imposes extreme hardship on Spaniards and Italians whilst it supports greedy mega bankers, has an undemocratically elected president, that's Herman von Rompuy, and through its NATO war machine continues bombing and destroying Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and is now poised for unilateral attack against Syria and Iran. Indeed, peace should be made of sterner stuff. But in addition to its internal economic warfare and its plea of moral duty to promote war abroad and assert its position on the global chessboard, the EU is not an eligible candidate for this prize, according to Mikhail Chosudovsky. While the EU's contribution to peace is debatable, the key issue is whether a union of nation-states, which constitutes a political, economic, monetary, and fiscal entity, is an eligible candidate for the Peace Prize in accordance with the mandate of the Norwegian Committee. The Olympic Games are, quote, granted to countries, but the Nobel Peace Prize cannot, under any stretch of the imagination, be granted to a nation-state, let alone a union of nation-states. Has a Norwegian Nobel Committee become Orwell's worst nightmare, where war is peace? To understand their nonsensical choices over the years and what to expect in the future, one has to wonder, who and what does the Nobel Committee represent? Expect anything from Nobel Committee members. They represent wealth, power, privilege, imperial lawlessness, and war, not peace. Perhaps they believe war is peace. They'll have to explain why scoundrels regularly win their highest award. If the Nobel Peace Prize is delusional, the victims of the EU warfare will tell you the horror of war is real. All right. If you have any questions, comments, opinions that may differ from or are in agreement with the article that I have just read, you are invited to call. Our telephone number here is 524-1080. We'll put you on the radio and see what you have to comment with regards to the article that I just read. The article begins with pointing out that there were other scoundrels who were also given the Nobel Peace Prize, and what the article suggests should be actually called the Nobel War Prize. And two of those additional scoundrels, it's my word rather than theirs. One is Barack Obama and the other is Henry Kissinger. Many people are now more and more familiar with the war work of Henry Kissinger. With Barack Obama, when he got the award, you didn't really see the kind of war tactics that he was carrying out. But subsequent to that, you see it playing itself out. They gave the award to Obama at the beginning of his presidential term. And it was more a statement of hope than anything else. But following receiving the award and the actions that he took and continues to take, and that is continuing the war in Iraq and in Afghanistan, joining in the saber rattling with Israel and the drone strikes that he had been taking action with, all to me disqualifies him as being an awardee of the Nobel Peace Laureate. All right, those are my comments. I am in total agreement with Julie Levesque and her opinion that is found in the Transcend Media Service website. Okay, so following that, if you would like to call and share an opinion, 524-1080. What's happening in the local news? Well, this morning's newspaper, well, many of you may have heard about the scare that some of us went through last night. I normally spend my Saturday evenings in a place in Kapahulu and in a place called Lucky Mao, which is about one street above the Honolulu Zoo. And I was awakened as I was trying to fall asleep and get ready for this morning's news, this morning's program. Someone was rapping on my door and saying, Poka, get up, you got to get out of here. What is that? Tsunami is about to hit. And so up I got, jumped into the car, headed up to, what college campus is that? Someplace up in the Diamond Head area, and waited there until late in the evening to assure that the all clear signal had been given, and then headed back down and tried to get to sleep after that. So it's been a very active evening last night, and or was it this morning by the time everything settled down. The Honolulu Star-Advertiser has announced that there is a sort of a realignment with the mayoral candidacy, and let's see if I can find that first page. According to the Advertiser, another poll comes out that says Kirk Caldwell is over 10 points ahead in the mayoral race over Ben Cayetano. Kirk having 53% of the supposed votes to be cast, with Ben Cayetano at 42%. So that seems to be a change, and this is the first time that Kirk Caldwell has pulled ahead, at least in the polls. Of course, nothing counts until election day and the votes rather than any of the polls. So we'll see what takes place. The article, or the Star-Advertiser, also says that it appears the voters are now favoring rail as opposed to rail. So interesting change. Sometimes you wonder if the Star-Advertiser is reporting accurately, because we should not forget that as an organization, it has taken the position of supporting rail as well as endorsing Kirk Caldwell. Other things in the news this morning, let's see. Now they say that there are Iraqi militants coming out of Iraq and going to Syria to join the turmoil that is now going on in Syria. The Iraqi militants, as they go to Syria, are not going to support the rebels against the Syrian government. They are, in fact, going to support the government itself. So it's hard to distinguish what the paper is saying. Is it good or bad? Should there be additional support to support the government in power, the recognized government of Syria? Or should one go and support the rebellious group, the rebels? Some people could call them, according to some definition, the insurgents or the terrorists. It seems very interesting how one takes a look at these terms or these words depending on what side of the conflict you come from. If it was in Iraq, then the rebels would be considered terrorists and insurgents. Now being in Syria, the terms seem to diminish. Why is it? Well, it seems that in the U.S., the reason for that is dependent on the position of the United States. If the United States supports one side or the other side, the supporters, the fighters, the civilians, or the government that the United States sides with cannot be called terrorists, cannot be called rebels. It appears, according to the lexicon of these news agencies. And I think that's an inappropriate use of the language. It's a suggestion that the United States itself can never be considered a terrorist supporting organization. And yet I submit that it has been doing that, and usually under the auspices of the Central Intelligence Agency. Also under the auspices of the United States aid program, which operates oftentimes under the CIA. Okay, we'll continue with some more of those unpopular ideas. Let's go to some music.
Kaulana na pua o Hawaii, Kupa ama hope o ka aina, Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino, Pala pala anunu me ka pata